Alright, so today we're going to talk about how to memorize the notes on the guitar fretboard, which can be a bit of a challenge at first because we have 6 strings between 21 and 24 frets depending on your guitar model, and each one of those frets has a different note to them. So I'm going to share with you today some tips that help me memorize the guitar fretboard so you can use them too in your playing. So let's jump right in. Okay, so first tip is to memorize the low E and the A string first. Don't try to focus on all 6 strings, just focus on those 2, because any chord that we want to build off, we'll be able to find the root just within these 2 strings right here. So we're going to focus on this video mostly on the natural notes, so no sharps and no flats. So let's start with the 6th string first. By itself, it's an E. On the 1st fret now, we have an F. On the 3rd, we have a G. On the 5th, we have an A. On the 7th, we have a B. On the 8th, we have a C. On the 10th fret, we have a D. So on the 12th, we go back to the E, and then it starts to repeat itself again. So we're only going to focus within the first 12 frets for now. So on this string, you're going to find yourself playing bar chords based off the E shape. So here's the E. And all we do now is we bar it, and we do the E shape with our other fingers, and we have our bar chord there. Now take notice that where my first finger is at, right at the tip, that's on the low E string there. That's an A, giving me my root note, or the name of the chord for now. So this is an A major, G major, F major. So notice all of these notes are the ones that we just named, and now we can easily find them and base our chord off of that. Now moving on to the 5th string, we have the A by itself. We have B on the 2nd fret. We have C on the 3rd fret. We have D on the 5th. We have E on the 7th. F on the 8th fret. We have G on the 10th fret. And then we have A on the 12th fret again. So on this string, you'll find yourself playing 2 shapes. You'll find yourself playing the A shape and the C shape. Now we have D here, looking at D major there, C, E, F. All of them are the notes that we just named on the string right there. Alright, so tip number 2 is to take advantage of whole steps and half steps. One thing that I noticed while I was learning music theory and taking beginner piano is that the B and the C and the E and the F are right next to each other. There's nothing in between them. Now it's easier to see on the piano compared to the guitar, but on the guitar, B and C would just be a half step apart. So here's B on the 2nd fret of the A string. So right next door on the 3rd fret, we have a C. And they'll always be together right there. Now, same thing goes for the E and F. Here's E on the 7th fret of the A string. And if I go up by a half step, there is the F right there. Always next to each other. So every other combination, you have to have a whole step in between. In other words, you skip a fret. So if I wanted to go from this C on the 3rd fret of the A string to a D, I would have to go up 1 whole step and skip 1 fret in between. So I went from the 3rd to the 5th, and I skipped the 4th. And if I want to go from D to E, again, another whole step. E to F, right next door, so we talked about. And then F to G, it's another skip. And then G to A, it's another skip of a whole step. So if I land on the A right here on the 1st string on the 5th fret, and I want to find myself on that same string, I want to find a D, I know technically how many whole steps and half steps I need to go to. So A to B, I skip a whole step. B and C is right next door. And then C to D, it's another whole step. And I'm right there. So take advantage of your whole steps and half steps. They really do help out when trying to memorize the fretboard. So the next tip is to start learning these notes with some movable chords. So pick an easy progression, and as you're playing these chords, try to name the note that you land on. So for example, if I land here on the 5th fret, I would be A, then G, then F. If I'm on the 5th fret, I can be like E right here, E minor, C, D. So just call them out as you're playing them. And if you need to, just look up some easy, 3 to 4 chord progressions, nothing too complicated, that you can just practice on these two strings. And again, call them out. So that was an A to F to G. So as you get comfortable playing progressions on each of the strings, feel free to start crisscrossing across both of them. So go from the low E to the A. And again, as you're doing that, either mentally or out loud, tell yourself what note you're landing on. So that's an A, to a D, to a G, to a C. Another exercise you can do is to quiz yourself by landing on a random note on one of these two strings. For example, if I were to land on the 3rd fret of the low E, that is a G. Now from there, try to see if you can go to another note that you call out on that same string. For example, I'm on the G right now, and let's say I want to go to B. Try to see if you can move on that same string from the 3rd fret and see where the B is at. So in this case, that would be G, A, B right there on the 7th fret. And again, for this exercise, try to have a chart of the notes on their correct places so you can, reference back to it and see if you got the right spot. So again, let's say I land on the 5th fret of the A string. That is a D. Now let's say I want to go to a G on that same string. So now let's see, D, E, F, right next to each other, and B, 10th fret. So I would check my chart, see if it's G on the 10th fret on the A string, and if I'm right, then feel free to celebrate. And if I got it wrong, don't feel too bad. It takes time to memorize these notes, but as you keep trying and trying, you'll start to get more familiar with where they're at. And also as you play songs, you'll start to realize where certain chords are at, because you'll play in that song so much that you'll memorize, okay, this is always an A, this is the F, this is the C right there. But if that becomes even still too much for you, memorizing from the 1st fret all the way up to the 12th, try to stick to maybe 4 or 5 frets maybe. So maybe just focus on the first 5 frets. That's right here would be F, G, and A. On the A string that would be B, C, and D. And if that's all you can do, that's perfectly fine, all right? Don't feel that you need to do overload yourself with so many notes here, because then it just becomes complicated and you start surfing YouTube looking for other easier solutions, and the cycle just continues over and over again. So if you need to, chop it down to smaller pieces, feel free to do that, and that'll help you memorize the notes just a bit faster too. So those are the tips that I use to help me memorize the guitar fretboard. Now, as you implement these tips, you'll soon start to see the guitar fretboard more as a roadmap to get from point A to B, rather than just a bunch of strings and notes everywhere. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if memorizing the notes from the 1st fret to the 12th fret is still too much for you, feel free to break it down. Maybe memorize only the first 5 frets on those 2 strings, and from there, build upon that 1 fret at a time, and that'll help you grow faster too. So take it 1 step at a time. I know it might seem a bit frustrating, especially if this is not your first video on this topic, and if it probably won't be your last, but I suggest you take at least 1 tip from whatever video you're watching and practice that for at least a month. See if you get any progress with that. If not, then watch another video, because you don't want to be on an endless cycle of just watching YouTube videos and not taking action. You need to take action for this stuff to actually work. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.